Okay, so step 4 in the Carpenter 4-step listing process is the moment when we sit in front of the seller. And so we do have certain dialogue. I'll tell you, prepare for this. The best part of this is if you do a walkthrough and you don't send the CMA, you can do a walkthrough, go back to your office, meet with your manager or another broker. You can call an appraiser. You can call the agents on the listings around that listing. Get as much information as you can so that when you present pricing, you can do it in a way that builds confidence in the seller that you know what you're talking about. That all comes from conviction. And so when you sit down with the seller, you do want to have conviction about your value, your action plan, your steps that you understand, and you are the professional. So we don't have, in particular, a presentation folder in Property Base because we assume you're going to build that. Remember, the Colts have 200 plays and they only use 25. You have 100 plays, you're only going to use 5 or 10. That's your presentation folder. It's those 5 or 10 plays. Always have the right choice brochure ready to talk about. And I'll share with you how you can get into different conversations based on the seller's reactions and the different tracks we can get into. But what you want to do in your listing presentation folder is have everything and know where it is. So have extra listing contracts, have extra disclosures, have an extra CMA if you had sent with them one already, have extra BLC sheets if you sent them to them, have extra propaganda, have extra flyers, all that stuff. And there's just prepare. Now, the next step you can also do, and if this is the first time you're doing this or the second time and you're not sure, bring with you, probably every time, bring with you the pre-listing questionnaire with the answers. Go through that before you show up. Highlight the things that are important that you want to talk about. Meaning, they told you that they love their 3-season porch. You have a special feature card that says 3-season porch. If it matters to this seller, it's going to matter to the next buyer. And you want to highlight that. If they told you, they had to be to move to Cleveland by May 30th or whatever the date is, highlight that. Bring with you a calendar. Share with them the details of what the real estate calendar is. Meaning, hey, you told me you had to be in Cleveland by May 30th. Well, let me share with you what that means. Pull out a calendar and circle May 30th. And hey, in this marketplace, you know, it's taking 25 to 30 days to actually close a loan. No matter what you're hearing, it takes 25 or 30 days. So backtrack 30 days, worst case scenario, right? Then circle May 1st, whatever that day is. Now, in my action plan, I want to list the house on Thursday and take showings on Friday, Saturday, do the open house on Sunday, take all the offers we can till Monday, and then reply by Tuesday. And hopefully by Tuesday, you know, we would have, at that moment, an accepted contract. Well, that's 6 days. So from May 1st, go back 6 more days, right? Now we're April 24th. Now you can talk a little bit about, now, are you still wanting to paint? Do you want to replace this carpet? You know, what are you wanting to do to stage your home? You know, what are you including in the sale? What do you want to leave it the way it is? And if they say, yeah, it's going to take 2 weeks, well, now you need to go back 2 more weeks. And so if today is you know, May 1st, I'm already 3 weeks past when they should have listed to get it to Cleveland by May 30th. That's kind of what you have to be prepared for, okay? Whether you need to present that every time depends on how your conversation goes, which is why this is so hard to just show you a video of us role-playing this, because you need to ask the questions. Every concern is going to be different. Okay, so let me get into step 4. Step 4 is the listing presentation dialogue. You need to learn the dialogue, memorize the dialogue. A lot of coaches, people that coach for us and to our agents, will tell you to actually rewrite this dialogue in your handwriting on a log of paper. And then from there, actually sit down with the seller. Find yourself a real comfortable place to be and tell the seller, hey, if it's okay with you, I've been really prepared for this and taken a lot of notes. Do you care if I get those out right now so I don't miss anything? That says something. It says that you really do care, for one, and you should be okay with not understanding every sentence that you need to say. This stuff's very critical. Now, just by doing that one action, you're going to separate yourself from all the competition who just Pop-Tart up like the doctors that walk down the hallway, right? You're going to look and show your value to them in person. Okay, so step 4, the listing presentation dialogue starts like this. I'm going to read some of this to you. A is review where they're going, how soon do they need to be there, and that's where you could pull out the calendar, right? Or talk through the pre-listing questionnaire with them. things like, hey, you mentioned that you loved living here because you could walk to the park, blah, blah, blah. I think those are real important things for the next buyer, right? Don't get into I, me, me, me. They don't care, and you shouldn't be doing that. B, the next step is you need to share the state of the current market and the current challenges, meaning, you mentioned that your neighbor's house, when I asked you what the price was going to be, I'm just kind of dialoguing here. In the pre-listing questionnaire, you asked the seller what the price was going to be. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you told me that it was going to be between, you thought, $250 and $280. But you said that because your neighbor's house sold in 1 hour, you thought, at $280. Well, do you know if they lived through a real estate fall through? Because you and I know, as agents active in the business, that the fall throughs are at least 1 in 4, at least 1 in 3. So every time someone finds a buyer, they don't get to closing with that buyer. So our words of finding the right buyer are critical at this moment, because sometimes we take that first buyer and we make them the right buyer by continuing to advertise. You see, back in the day, we used to take offers on a Friday or a Saturday, and we'd put our open house signs out on a Saturday, and the buyers would say, we will accept your offer if you don't do the open house on Sunday. See, the pressure that puts on the buyer causes them to be the right buyer. Now, in today's marketplace, in a seller's market, you talk about the challenges of that. Sure, it's great we might get multiple offers if we price it right. Sure, it's great that you don't have to show your house for 6 months, but you're going to be gone on Saturday. Like, you better find a hotel maybe Saturday night. I want to make sure we do an open house because we want the public to come in when their agent can't bring them, right? And then you need to talk about the fall through rate and ask them, have you ever lived through a real estate fall through? And just be quiet. These questions require you to stop talking at the end of them. And if they haven't, you can say, that's great. My job is to make sure you don't have one in this transaction. And our job is to find the right buyer. And I'm going to get to some of that verbiage. So A is just review where they're going and if that's still the case. Sometimes that changes. What that is motivation, meaning some of the biggest challenges we have are, well, we want to capitalize on the seller's market right now, but we don't have anywhere to go. So that's okay. We don't need to get into it too deep, but we can just brush through it, meaning I understand you want to capitalize, and I don't blame you. I'm here to help you net the most money that this market will allow. Have you thought about a bridge loan? Have you thought about an Airbnb? Have you thought about transitional living? Have you thought about how cool an apartment complex is all summer with the pool and you not having to do any yard work? Right? Those are just quick conversations you can have. You're going to meet the challenges of the market. All right? Those are A and B. C, we get into this question of, if you could wave a magic wand, how would you picture this sale going? And you're going to hear what some people would call fantasy land, but most people are real about it. They just want to not be, at this point, they don't want to be brought down by too much activity and the confusion of multiple offers. They want the best offer. And so when you talk about the right buyer and fall through rates, you know that you're the navigator to guide them through this process to make sure that the buyer is the right buyer, or we're going to line up a backup offer. So based on what that magic wand appears for them, just listen at this moment. You don't have to have an answer, an objection handler, or a direction for them to go at this moment. You're just listening. Now, them saying these things are really important because they've been ready for your appointment, or they're going to say things that you're going to hear that they might bring up to the other agents that you're competing against, and those agents will not have answers. So just listen at this moment. D, now what's going to feel weird for you, by the way, is those questions go pretty quick. So you sat down, you went to their house, you sat down at the kitchen table, and you asked those questions. You can build rapport, how you doing, and all that stuff, but when you sit down, you can just start these questions. When you get to D, it's really where you start closing on them. It's a natural close, meaning are they committed? It's not, hey, I'm selling you this vacuum and you better buy it tonight. It's, are we ready? Are you ready for me to help you? And so D, the question is, did you review the pre-listing packet I dropped off? And they'll hopefully say yes. And do you have any questions regarding the packet? If they haven't looked at it, take a few minutes to review it with them. Now, go back to step 3. Step 3 was confirming the listing appointment. And what you did was you flushed out the objections. What you also need to be doing in step 3 is, if they didn't get their eyes into the pre-listing packet, you need to make sure that they do before you show up, right? That was the first question in step 3 was, did you get the packet information I received? Do you have any questions regarding that packet? If they say no, we haven't opened it yet, you need to make sure, well, please look at that before I show up tomorrow, okay? Because you want them to show up. You want to show up with that done, if possible. So did you review the pre-listing packet when we're sitting at the kitchen table right now? What's going to happen is, I'm telling you, you're going into these appointments in your career and you're worried about your value and charging too much and then overpricing the house. That's been your career, maybe. But when you do this system, when you say, did you review the pre-listing packet I dropped off or I sent to you? They're going to go like this. They're going to grab the folder and they're going to open it. And they're going to say, yeah. And you're going to have a signed listing contract. Now, how great is this conversation from this step forward in how can I help you sell your home for the most money versus I can do this, I, me, my commission is, your price should be. That's the difference here. We've steered ourselves into great conversations face-to-face with people where we can actually be helpful. So that was D. E is, based on the information in the packet, do you want me to handle the sale for you? If they say yes, it's the first time in your career maybe you had a 3-minute listing appointment, meaning you got the listing signed. You didn't have to waterboard them with all this other information. There's nothing wrong with them saying yes. You spent 15 minutes with them, maybe 20 on the phone. They maybe spent 15 to 20 or 30 minutes with the pre-listing packet on their own. You confirmed it with them. You've already shown value, okay? Now if they say, yes, but we're not sure about your pricing. Yes, but we're just really not comfortable with paying that much commission. This isn't a moment to start guarding yourself again. This is just, I understand. Is there anything else? Now, the most powerful thing you can have with you when you're on a listing presentation is a pad of paper, a pen, and a bottle of water. Because if they ask you a question and you're uncomfortable or you don't know the answer, just slow down. Your heart rate will still go fast. Just slow down, take a drink of water. And in your mind, you're thinking, oh, crap, I don't know the answer. No, it's fine. You don't need to know the answer. Just slow the process down. Take a drink of water, write down what their concern is. And if they say commission's concern, write down seller's net, right? Is there anything else that I can help you with? Yeah, we're not sure about the pricing. Is there anything else? Well, we don't know if we want to paint Timmy's room, right? Most of the time, the concerns are, what do we do with this color? What do we do with the countertops in the kitchen? They've already bought into your value and the pricing, okay? So don't go to the listing appointment with the baggage. That's the point here. Okay, if they've signed the listing contract, I'm reading in the bold in here if you're following along in the listing presentation dialogue. If they signed the listing contract already and are ready to sign the listing contract or are ready to sign the listing contract at this point, then move right into that paperwork. Just move right into it. So at this moment, they might say, yeah, we're ready, but you put a pricing window on there. We think we want to list here. If that price is acceptable to you, then cross it, get the listing contract out and cross it and have them initial it. You're done. You have a listing contract. Now pull out your action plan. Okay, here's how I want to list your house, right? Start doing the things that you're getting paid for at this moment going forward. The old ways of popping in and doing it were we did all the work before we knew we were getting paid, meaning we staged the home, we priced the home, and then we came back for the listing appointment and they didn't want to sign it. Well, you just did all that work for free. If you're going to do that work for free, do it at your house. Your house probably needs staged too, right? Okay, if they aren't ready to sign and you asked, is there anything else? Is there anything else? Then this is what's so great about this listing presentation is this is your moment to move into 3 maybe different areas. And one area might be your action plan, meaning, yeah, but we're really not sure about the commission that you're charging. Okay, I understand. Is there anything else? No. All right, so then you can go right into this dialogue after this and you're going to move into the right choice brochure. And you're going to start talking about the right buyer and the opportunities you have to provide the opportunity for them to find the right buyer, meaning our marketing, boost, what we do as with your action plan. Do we list it and take multiple offers? Do we do an open house? The right choice brochure is great because it used to be we would just present, well, we're 7% because we have a TV show. Well, that's not enough. What we weren't saying was all the 1,000 other things that we were doing. Now we've presented to them all the things we've been doing with our questions in our pre-listing packet. Now we can go through the right choice brochure telling them what the right buyer is, how you're connected, how you're committed, and then you can work right into what you're going to be doing. They're going to see your value there, okay? Now, if they say, yes, but we're not sure about that pricing that you put on the listing contract. So in the step 4 of the listing presentation process, we have 2 tracks of pricing, okay? The first track is a little more, ninja-y, as we call it, and the second track is a little more maybe Mike Ferry type. So one's a little more direct, one's a little more presentation, pulls the seller along. They're both good. In fact, you might use track 1 with a certain seller, and you might use track 2 with a different seller. Or you might always use track 1, or always use track 2. It just depends how you want to do that. And either one's fine. But if during those first few questions when you sit down, if you say, are you ready for me to help you market your home? And they say, yes, but we're not sure about the pricing. Great. Pull out the CMA and start the pricing dialogue of the CMA. We have it right here in step 4. Okay? And so I do want to go through some of these questions with you. If you get the yes, but, and you don't have the signature yet, then I want to go through some of these. So if they're ready, if they aren't ready to sign after you ask, then you can move into these things. If you're going to present the Right Choice brochure, or you're going to present your action plan or the CMA, you can go right into this and just set these expectations right now. These are things you should memorize over time, but if you have it in front of you, just read it, and that's fine too. Take your pen and make a check mark after you say it. It's a great way to show that you're on track. But start with this. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, after I've answered your questions, one of 3 things could happen. You may decide to list with me. Or you may decide not to list with me. See, that's kind of psychologically laid out that way for a reason. Number 3 is, if I feel I can't help you achieve your goals, I have the responsibility to tell you that and not take your listing. I used to say, when I went on 2 or 3 listing appointments a week, I would say with somebody in their living room or their kitchen, I would realize in my mind, I'm working for free right now. If I don't set these expectations, I might as well go home in my own kitchen and work for free. And so I would say, hey, I'm going to turn you down now rather than let you down later. Because if I can't meet their needs and I can't spell out what the goals are here, then we're never going to come to any kind of agreement, or we're never going to be satisfied with what the agreement is. So you're going to start with, hey, one of 3 things can happen. You're going to hire me, you're not going to hire me, I'm not going to work with you, right? Say it nicer and say it that way. There's a reason why we have those words that way. And then you move into, there are only 3 issues that we have to consider. Your desire to sell is 1, the price you choose to market your home at, and 3, your final net at closing. And you can say, we'll net you more at closing. Now it says right here, our action plan to flush out the right buyers, marketing strategies, inspection handling. These are things that people don't think about later. Negotiating ability. And you've all sold or heard of stories of us selling for sale by owners. And our buyers get great deals. The latest one was $35,000 under list price. Now what's going to happen during the inspection process? They're probably going to get the inspection process done well too. And we're going to get to closing and help our people. What we need to present to our sellers is we have those skills for them too, right? And that's really why they're hiring us, is to net them more money. And then you can go right into, let me share with you what is needed to find the right buyer in today's market. It's a great opportunity to pull out the Right Choice brochure. It's great to highlight those things. If I go through that brochure and I read all of it, they're going to wish they were in Guantanamo Bay. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to highlight, I'm going to have Post-its, I'm going to have a Sharpie, whatever I have, and I'm going to go through that brochure and just present to them the points that matter to them, but also are points and strategies that I use to help them. You can go right into, let me share with you the pricing strategy that the market is able to support. So if you say that and you have your CMA ready, then you need to know before you get there one of the 2 pricing tracks you're going to go to. So if I work myself through step 4, I get to the pricing dialogue track 1. That's a natural flow right into track 1. If I'm going to use track 2, you'll see that track 2 has different verbiage to start your conversation with, and some of it's a repeat from what I just said. So you need to practice and be ready. But if you're going to go right into step 1, it really goes right down to this. And I want to share this with you. What I can't do in this presentation is do this in front of you, right? Or role play this. It just doesn't work out that well. But I'm going to explain to you the best way to present that we're finding that in the trenches, the agents that are doing this are really pulling sellers along for the seller's best needs and interests. And we're actually having great satisfied clients. So if they say, let me share with you the pricing strategy, then just turn the page, go right into track 1 and read J. I'm on J right now. It says, while pricing a home at fair market value doesn't sound complicated, it can, because we have to weave together the following things. It's your motivation, it's the true market results, the showing condition of the home, it's the current competition, it's using the right marketing tools to find the right buyer. Now, imagine those 5 things. You know that, but if you don't say that to them, they don't understand. They just assume that you're going to put the house in the market and you're going to have multiple offers and showings. And by the way, that isn't happening every day, and it won't happen every day in the future. So you need to still explain to them, you're the professional, this is your job, this is what you're doing. And we have the tools to do that. In fact, we have the automation and tools to do that where you don't have to spend much time on it. So why aren't we using it and sharing it out loud with our sellers is really something you need to ask yourself. Okay, so you've asked that. K says, the purpose of reviewing the CMA is to determine the value of your home in the eyes of the buyer. Do you know how buyers determine value? See, that pulls us right in from the beginning of this process when we said, if you were looking at your pricing of your home through the eyes of the buyer, how would you rate your home on a scale of 1 to 10? That was a question, the pre-listing questionnaire. Remember that? And then we said, what would make it a 10 after they graded their home? See, we're going right back to that. And we will explain to them, this is the presentation part. We will explain to them that buyers determine value by comparison shopping. Track 2 has an example of how to do that with a sale of a car. That's a great analogy that's real simple for them to understand. But they look at the price of your home based on its features and benefits, and then they compare it to the features and benefits of similar homes that have sold recently or are currently on the market. Now, in a seller's market, they're going to be panicked, and they're going to not care about some of the features and benefits or the new carpet or the granite countertop. But see, our job is to find the right buyer, because when they frenzy forces them to work through that faster, that causes buyer's remorse and maybe a fall through. So what we want to do is present these things so that we know that we're telling them the truth, and we're here to navigate and guide them through this pricing strategy. This track 1 actually pulls the seller along, and the seller starts seeing value on their own. I'm on K3 at this moment, and I'm reading, what we don't want to do is attract these buyers just to get them to say no, because it's priced too high, it won't appraise. That's a great conversation. Or sadly, many buyers experience buyer's remorse and never get to the closing table. You see, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, there are no statistics to track this, but I'm going to show you in these comps I'm about to share the history of them. And you're going to see that a few of them have fall throughs, meaning they went active, pended, back active again. And maybe they had a price reduction. When you're presenting your comparables to the seller, what you want to do is make sure that you have the history there, and you want to make sure you're highlighting the things that matter in comparison to this subject property. And then I'm going to show you I'm going to tell you kind of how to present that I think is the best. And not just me, everyone that's doing it thinks it's the best. So I'm working my way through J and K in the pricing dialogue. And if I get to L, it says, do you think you're willing to list your home at fair market value? Yes, they say. Okay, let's start by looking at the market through the buyer's eyes. They select homes based on 3 criteria: size, location, price. Now, this is a great opportunity now to demonstrate and pull out the BLC sheets. You have the pretty Cloud CMA, and that's nice, but it is really powerful to have BLC sheets out. Highlight everything ahead of time, and then when you're presenting this BLC sheet, just take your pen and you say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's a comparable that an appraiser is going to use, right? See, some of the strategy that we're learning right now is we're using the words starting price, and instead of this is a list price, this is the appraisal price. No, this is the starting price. So in order to come up with the starting price, here's a comp that I want to share with you. Take your pen and point to the address. Are you familiar with this home? No? What's the address? And then you got to shut up for a minute or a second and let them say 123 Main Street. And how much does it say it sold for? Point to the price. How many bedrooms? They say 3. You point to the bathrooms. They say 2. One of the best comps that we were able to pull on a recent one was the seller actually paid closing costs for the buyer. See, the other sellers in the neighborhood had no idea that the seller paid closing costs. That's poor negotiating skills by that agent. I didn't have to say that agent was terrible at negotiating. I just had to point out, do you notice this $3,200? Yeah, that's where the seller paid the buyer's closing costs. And just move on. See, what you're doing is they're self-realizing these things. You can highlight things in the property remarks that talk about the granite countertops, the 4th bedroom that Could be a 4th bedroom, right? Whatever it is that compares to your subject property, you need to take your BLC sheets and then just make them go through it, and then go to the price. Maybe share the history. You see this house is priced at $280,000, and then it pinned it. That's great in 2 days. But then it came back active again in a week later. See, that's called a fall through. And then they had to lower the price to $275. See, instead of maybe listing at $280, maybe they should have listed at $275 and found the right buyer. In fact, if they would have listed at $270, they might have found multiple right buyers who bid it up to $280. And now we have a buyer who's going to stick us all the way to the closing and stick with us. So there's a way to present that. That's how I would suggest you do that with track 1 and all the way through track 1. There are 2 pages of this. After you share all the comparables, you get right down to starting to close on pricing. Based on current market conditions, where do you feel you should price your house? Now notice the verbiage here. We didn't say, where do you think you should price the home you raised your children in that we're ripping you out of, right? No, we say the words house or property because we have to emotionally and psychologically start separating them from what is, quite frankly, their life. And it's for their own good. And so if we say based on the current market conditions, where do you feel you should price your house, that feels different than where should we price your home. Those little things are the things you're going to have to practice and get good at because it's for their best interest, and that's going to net them the most money. They'll make the best decisions with you later. You do work your way through this. It does say, I'm on Q, it says, do you feel that pricing will find the right buyer? And if not, what is plan B? So right now we're staging them for price reductions to put right in the listing contract. In today's market, if they don't get multiple offers or offers in the first week after your action plan is in place, they need to do a price reduction. You'll know within 48 hours if it's overpriced. And so what they don't know is that. So you need to just work them through this, and then in the listing contract, have price reductions. On day 7, we're going to reduce the price $10,000. On day 7, we're going to reduce the price. These are things that professionals do to help them get the most money, okay? That's track 1. It does get into, you got to close and ask for the business. That's the end. Are you ready to put me to work for you tonight? If they come up with, well, we're okay with listing at $270, pull out the listing contract, $270. If they didn't sign it because they said yes, but earlier, yes, but we're not sure about pricing, go right back to the listing contract, say, okay, I agree $270, I think I can market this home. That's a great starting price, and I'm ready to go. Are you ready to put me to work tonight? And then get to page 4 of the listing contract and sign it. And now we're moving on to staging, we're moving on to doing things that we get paid to do, right? Setting up a photographer, all the fun stuff that is better than these conversations. Let me breeze through track 2, and I don't want to downgrade it because it's track 2. It's really powerful. It's actually it's a little more upfront, and many of you, what I call assassins out there, who just punch people in the face with news, are much stronger than I am, and so you're able to just go right to track 2. If, when you sit down with them and you say, are you ready to do you feel like I can market your home? And they say, yes, but I'm not sure about the pricing, and you're going to use track 2, then the verbiage on track 2 actually starts here with, at the end of my presentation tonight, 1 of 3 things will happen. You'll have the opportunity to list your home with me, or you'll decide not to list your home with me, or I'll decide not to take your listing, and any one of those is fine. And then let's quickly take a moment and review the questions I asked you over the phone. You said you were moving to Cleveland. Is that still the case? You said you were moving because of job transfer. Remember, these are questions, so you got to slow down a little bit. You said you had to be there by May 30th. Is that correct? Would you like to price your home at whatever? You would like to price your home at? Is that right? Remember, that question was in the pre-listing questionnaire. They might have said, well, we're going to price our house at $270, and that's it. What you're working through is if that price is wrong. And so that's why you're asking these questions. And if you said you owed $200,000, is that still the case? Now, if you were planning on selling it yourself, you weren't planning on selling it yourself, were you? No, that's terrific. You did or did not want your money out. Is that correct? And then you're going to get into, now there are only 2 issues you have to look at tonight. Number 1 is your motivation to sell this home. And number 2 is the price we set on your home. And then it goes into, I've prepared what we call a comparative market analysis. There are 2 parts to the research. Part 1, we call Fantasyland. This is what homeowners list their homes for. And part two is, we call that reality. What real estate agents list and sell homes for. We're going to have to decide tonight where you want to spend your time on, what we want to spend our time on. The purpose of the CMA is to determine the value of your home in the buyer's eyes. Do you know how buyers determine value? And then it gets right into this. And I'm going to keep reading this because I think it's important that you hear me say it, even though you should be practicing this. But I do want to pause there and let you notice that in both tracks of pricing, we do use the words buyer's eyes. Buyer's eyes is the question, the pre-listing questionnaire. And the word buyer is important in all this. The right buyer, buyer's eyes. All of this verbiage means something. As you get good at presenting it, you're actually working them through a process that psychologically will get them comfortable and see your value, and then later we'll make better decisions, whether it's in inspections or negotiations or a closing time even, right? They're going to believe you and follow you, and that's what's important here. Okay, so do you know how buyers determine value was the question I stopped at. Buyers determine value by comparison shopping. They look at the price of your home based on its features and benefits and compare it with the features and benefits of similar homes that have sold recently or are currently on the market. For example, and here's the example that you can memorize and go into. If you were going to purchase a new car and one dealership had a car for $50,000 and another dealership had the same car for $50,000, but it had an entertainment system, which car would be more valuable and why? And then be quiet, let them answer. So you have a car for $50,000 with an entertainment system and a car for $50,000 without one. Now, what if the first dealership put the car with no entertainment system on sale for $45,000? What would be a better value then? You see how we're walking them through what is somewhat familiar to them? So as you can see, if you want to increase value, you either need to lower the price or you need to have more features and benefits for the same price. Does that make sense? So unless you're planning to add more features and benefits to your home, well, are you? No, right? The price is only the issue. Price is the only issue. Can I show you what I mean? And then you go into your BLC sheets. So this is a home just like yours. How many bedrooms does it have? You're doing the same presentation with the BLC sheets. See, they need to see it. And then it's great to close on every one of the end of those BLC sheets, no matter what track you're talking about. It's great to say, based on the features and benefits of that home, do you think your house is better? Do you think this house is a little better than yours? Or do you think this house is very similar to yours? Whatever. Is this house, inferior to yours? I think that if you just keep that dialogue going, they're going to start doing comparison shopping on their own to come up with their own price. So you get down to, as you work through this, what price do you feel we should use to create value in the eyes of the buyer to get someone to decide to buy your home versus the competition's home? Or in this marketplace, to get someone to buy your home, not have remorse, not beat you up during the inspection process, and actually the right buyer that can get to closing with their financing, right? It's the challenges of today's market. And so it may not be the competition, although that is going to be the case, and it is growing to be the case. So you just need to relate this to today's market. Now we get into closing on them. Now that you've seen these prices, I'm going to recommend a price of. And you can say that. I'm going to recommend that you price your home between $250,000 and $260,000. Will you list your home at that price? That's the close. If they say yes, then you ask for the business. All we simply need to do now is sign the contract, and you pull the contract out. Right? That's how you work through the objection of pricing. It's not that hard if you just stay on track. And if you practice this before you get there, it's good to be in a good state of mind, get there 5 minutes early, kind of get your mind clear and have your notes ready. And then pull your notes out and share them. So if I recap all of this, the 4 steps, the pre-listing interview is step 1, right? And some of you will call it pre-qualification, that's fine. If you're heavily prospecting and you have listing appointment after listing appointment after listing appointment, you're going to want to pre-qualify. You're not going to want to go on a bunch of listing appointments, spend hours of your time with people who aren't going to list their home. I know that sounds a little colder than what we usually are, but the reality is your time is worth something. And so prospect for the right seller, knowing that you can bring them to closing with the right buyer. And so if you're not prospecting a lot, you need to spend a lot of time on step 1 for the purposes of learning about that seller so you can be competitive in your listing presentation. Step 2 is the pre-listing packet. We have all the contents laid out for you. You have a little bit of work there to do to build those for yourself. Have your admin help you. Call me directly if you need help. Your managers know how to do it. And just build them, make them yours, and get them ready. That's step 2. How you want to send them, or if you want to do a walkthrough, that's fine. Step 3 is to confirm the listing presentation, meaning the listing appointment. You just confirm it and then go from there. You do flush out objections. You do point them back to the pre-listing packet so they'll have the paperwork done when you show up. Step 4 is the listing process, and I just went through that. I kind of fumbled through some of that, but I will tell you, the more you practice, the easier it's going to get for you, and then have it with you. Okay, that's the Carpenter 4-step listing process. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have questions, reach out to Amy, me, Tom Myers, any of your regional managers or your managers, and please put into action all of these steps. And if it takes you to do step 2 first, then do step 2. But I would urge you, and I plead with you, to get better at this point and start focusing on what you can control in the business, and that's getting more listings. Good luck.